well-lived life is a journey of consciously crafting the best version of oneself. Wellness and joy do not occur by chance. They are fostered by manifesting one's true light with courage and strength. Overall being occurs by creating a respectful, aware relationship with oneself and with others. That's the motto of today's guest. She's a clinical psychologist, author, consultant, advocate, and speaker. Welcome to the show, Dr. Carla Manly. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderfully. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Mirror Talk podcast. I sincerely love your motto. A well-lived life is a journey of consciously crafting the best version of oneself. How did you come up with this motto, and how has it been the journey? As how has the journey been for you? Crafting the best version of your own life.
That's a deep question, Toby. And where I came up with my motto, I love to write, I love to live. And through my life, I have learned that early on, I was raised in a Catholic family. I'm the ninth of 10 children. So I was raised in a way that you listen to your elders, you do what you're told, you follow the path that is set before you. And so I was guided and pressed to
Yeah.
be an attorney. And it was in law school that I realized I'm not meant to be an attorney. I'm meant to do something else. So I broke tradition, and my father was very displeased and obtained my master's
Mm.
in counseling psychology, and then went into because life took me on a different path and I needed to pay bills and do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I ended up working for years in the investment field and
Mm.
realized very soon that I was doing it to make other people happy, to make money for other people, and money is not one of my priorities in life. Happiness is.
Mm.
And so it took me a long time to realize that what I needed to do was completely break with other people's expectations and find my own.
Mm.
And so it was actually in doctoral school um, that I, for the first time, met people who felt like my people.
Mm.
People who spoke the same and thought the same and were after the same things, had the same priorities. And it was there that I really found my people and started really exploring who I was as an individual. And through that process, which is where my first book came from, my first book, Joy from Fear, was actually the result of my fear research, which
Mm.
was to understand if the fears that held me back in life were similar to other people's fears.
Mm.
And so I developed both a qualitative and a quantitative research tool to investigate other people's fears.
Mm.
And so basically, what I found was that people who live in a very fear based mindset, like I was raised in, tend to be self limiting. They're limited because of their worries about what other people might do or displeasing other people. And so, what I realized through time, lots of research, lots of self discovery, is that each one of us has a different path in life. And when we learn to look inside, to really work at polishing who we are and pay attention to who we are and what our code is, and
Mm.
living in loving, healthy ways, we tend to slowly but surely take steps in the right direction that help us to shine and
Mm.
radiate as no other person on the planet can do.
Yes, yes. And how did you do that? How did you take time to pay attention to who you truly are? To study yourself, to know, okay, this is who I am and this is what I am meant to be or to do.
Another fabulous question, Toby. And we live in a world that is very externally oriented,
Mm.
where we say we're so busy and we don't have time for self exploration or self discovery. And to be fair, there are people, and I've been there at times in my life, where you are working so hard to make ends meet, to make your mortgage payment, to pay the bills, to make everybody happy, that self discovery, self exploration, what? It seems like a luxury, or what are you
Yeah.
talking about? I'm
Yeah.
just trying to live, right? But for
Yes.
many of us, we can move past that state
Mm.
by really looking at our priorities
Mm.
and realizing if I have time for my hobbies, if
Mm.
I have time to watch television or, doom scroll on the internet for 5 hours or whatever, I
Mm.
can find more balance and make time for me.
Mm.
And Carl Jung, I have a quote in my office that says, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens."
Mm.
And I'm a Jungian trained psychologist. And so
Yes.
what that means is I really listen to a lot of Carl Jung's principles. I also have my own principles, but I'm very much guided by Jungian psychology, which is all about looking in.
Mm.
And so for me, and I work with people where it's about the practice of learning to pause,
Mm.
learning, and it's a constant journey. I can get, on full speed and forget to turn inward. And so it's that practice of always coming back to center. It's one of the reasons I love yoga. Yes, it's physical exercise, but it's also spiritual exercise.
Mm.
Spiritual exercise to remember that it's okay to be in discomfort. It's
Yeah.
okay to sit and just be. And it's okay because we're in such a externally oriented world again, where we're taught to pay attention to what other people think of us, pay
Yes.
attention to how much we accumulate,
Mm.
to listening to what other people want. Yet if we turn inside and consciously come back and say, what is the next best step for me?
Mm.
Then we automatically show up in the world in a better way, because it is that cycle, right? If I'm doing something that is truly good for me,
Mm.
I will naturally be having a positive effect on everyone in my world.
True. That's very true. That's very, very true. And I guess this is what motivated you to take this holistic and the body, mind, spirit approach to your services or to psychology that you do. Is that right?
Yes, I am very much body, mind, spirit oriented, because being body, mind, spirit oriented doesn't mean you need to be religious, or it simply means that you need to become in touch with your essence. We can
Mm.
call spirit essence, right?
Yes.
So for me, whether it's, I was, like I said, I was raised Catholic, but I bring in definitely elements of Buddhism into my life because I really appreciate that just being way of energy. And so
Mm.
I also think if we just look at the body, mind, spirit, what we think, right, affects what we do. And what we think also affects our bodies.
Mm.
So if we look at it in a very simple level, if I'm afraid of having a conversation with you,
Yeah.
I am going to, my fear is going to come up. I'm going
Mm.
to put my body into a fight or flight state,
Mm.
raising adrenaline and cortisol in my body. And
Yes.
in short bursts, fear like that is meant to serve us. It's meant for us to look at a threat and deal with a threat.
Mm.
But we're often living in fear
Mm.
day in and day out. So,
Yes.
of course, in that simple example, we can see how me being afraid to
Mm.
talk to you or to anyone else,
Mm.
if I stay in that anxious or fearful state, I
Mm.
am keeping elevated levels of cortisol and adrenaline in my body, and they're not meant to be there. So, it's destructive not just for my emotional and mental health,
Mhm.
it is also destructive for my physical health.
Mm.
It is also destructive for my spiritual health. Why? Because I'm not staying here in the present.
Mm.
I'm not just enjoying my conversation with Toby, or navigating my way through it.
Mhm.
I'm missing you. I'm not even
Yes.
seeing you because I'm so afraid, right? So if
Yes.
instead I just say, Toby has good intentions, I
Mm.
have good intentions, I'm
Mm.
just going to be here and be present for whatever shows up,
Yeah.
and everything will be fine. It changes the dynamics. That's freedom, by the way.
Oh, Freedom Journey podcast.
Freedom has just walked in. He's my giant schnauzer. And he's actually, it's really, really great that he walked in just now, because he is a reminder to me of being present and being balanced,
Mm.
because I can get very work focused. I
Mm.
have so many people I want to help and so much I want to do, that
Yes.
I can lose track of the importance of being present for play. And he will
Mm.
often come to me. He knows just when I finish a session, and he will come and he will bat at my arm and push my arm up like, Mom, It is time to take a break. We are going to go and you're going to throw the ball for me at least 3 times or something
Yeah.
like that. And
Yes.
so he is actually a force of balance in my life.
Mm.
And so that's an important piece to realize is that we don't always have perfect self balance.
Mm.
Sometimes it comes in the form of a partner or a pet, or a reminder on your phone, take a minute to stay balanced.
Yes.
And we have because we've become so divorced from
Mm.
nature,
Mm.
where our very recent ancestors spent most of every day, and now most of our days are spent sitting.
True.
And so, again, that's part of the body, mind, spirit that if we allow ourselves to be guided when something calls us and not see
Mm.
it as an irritation and not say, oh, freedom, go away, don't bother me. But if
Mm.
we say, thank you for the reminder,
Mm.
then it's a mindset shift. So I
Yes.
hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So the body mind spirit approach like connects the body, mind, and the spirit together, making them a unit once more, not just working mindlessly on something or ignoring your spiritual growth, for example. Is that right?
It is, Toby. And where this emanated from, Descartes. Um, he was born in 1596. I think he died in 1650. But what he did is he did many good things for us, but he also brought us what we call the body mind division,
Mm.
where before that period of time, we naturally saw the whole person. The Cartesian split, and it's called the Cartesian split,
Mm.
brought us to this place of seeing the body as a machine
Mm.
divorced from the mind,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
And the body is the machine, it's also divorced from the spirit.
Mm.
What that did, unfortunately, is make us treat ourselves in a very separate way. Like, oh, this body, I can treat it however I want, and it doesn't affect my mind, and it doesn't affect my spirit. But we are very much the body, mind, and spirit, they're inextricably intertwined.
Mm.
And when we even think about it, that the gut, the enteric nervous system, gives the brain 90% information. The
Mm.
brain only gives the gut 10% in that feedback loop.
Wow.
And when we think about that simple truth,
Yes.
and we are taught, ignore your gut, go with your brain.
Mm.
Isn't that interesting? It's the
That
gut
is
that's feeding a lot of information
mission
to
to
the
the
brain.
brain. Yeah.
Right. And so we want and here's the power when we divorce things, and that's why freedom was such a good example. My brain can tell me work 8 hours straight,
Mm.
see, or work 16 hours. Completely capable of working like 16 hours straight. I get super hyper focused, right? And
Yeah.
I can see client, client, client. But if we listen to the spirit and say, oh, that pup walked in to draw my attention to play. So
Mm.
I get out of my logical left brain that says, you can do this. And I get into my more creative, emotional, very important right brain that says, give yourself a break, go play with the pup. Right? And
Yes.
then in that break, I can choose my mindset to be grumpy that I was interrupted, or I can choose a mindset, a more spiritual mindset that says, what a lovely opportunity to
Mm.
be in a place of gratitude. And notice how the spirit comes up when we move into gratitude
Mm.
for this opportunity to maybe step outdoors, look at roses, whatever's going on outside.
Yeah.
And so notice how in that simple break, I've actually also given my body a much needed respite to move, my eyes a chance to refocus.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the really important piece of the body, mind, spirit approach, that we
Approach.
pay attention to the feedback loops of how they're all working. And
Mm.
not one part is more important than the other. The left brain's not more important than the right.
Yes, yes, that's very true. And earlier, you mentioned of of fear, and fear is like a very powerful force that drives our life. Like even in the body, mind, spirit approach, fear also influences how we connect everything together. And that draws me to your first book that you wrote, Joy from Fear. And I was really captivated by what you wrote. I was checking the Amazon page, and you wrote, if you find yourself running away from fear, you are running in the wrong direction. Fear demands that we move towards it, face it, and hear its messages. When we fail to do this, the price is high. Chronic anxiety, sleeplessness, damaged relationships, skyrocketing pharmaceutical use, and more. So, how would you advise us to embrace and manage fear in order to become better people in life?
This is just one of my favorite topics because fear, we tend to think of get over your fear.
Mm,
Get over it. No, 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 no. Fear. We have two types of fear. This is my paradigm. It's how, I work. We have two types of fear. Fear that is very helpful. The fear that says that dog is snarling at you or that
mm,
bear is chasing you.
yes.
Handle the situation, you are being threatened.
Mm,
We also have fear that is destructive fear. Fear that works against us being our better selves,
mm,
that comes up as a threat response,
mm,
that makes us run away
mm,
from new situations that could make us grow. It makes us run away from connection with partner because of some old script that's running in our head.
mm,
It makes us afraid to ask for that job promotion when we know we deserve it, but we don't want the boss to get upset with. We don't want to rock the boat. It also arises in the realm of self growth when we think, oh, I better just stay in my lane. This place is good enough. This relationship is good enough. This hobby is good enough. But if we listen to fear, it has a message for us.
mm,
It will tell us, come toward me, look at me, see if there's a threat, and if there's not. And this will expand you as a human being. Move forward. Maybe move forward slowly. Always move forward mindfully, but move in the direction of your dreams. And when we use fear in that way, it becomes our friend.
mm.
It becomes our friend because it becomes a guide to say, you're just talking about discomfort. That's
Yeah.
all this is. It's a
Yes.
new situation.
Mm,
It's uncomfortable, but you're tough. You're strong. You're resilient.
mm,
You can move through it. And
mm,
so that's what I love about fear is if we learn to dismantle it
mm,
to constructive fear, fear that's protecting us, keeping us safe. And it's often confusing, you know, sibling,
mm.
the constructive fear, because we can get the two confused.
Yes.
Then we can move forward. And that's why one of the things I work with a lot is anxiety and
Mm,
stress.
mm,
So much anxiety, in fact, most of it, is because we're worried about something in the future that we can't even control.
mm.
And so we have these levels of anxiety that are running, running, running. Now remember, body is here too.
Yes.
Body's going adrenaline, cortisol. And remember, these heightened levels of adrenaline and cortisol on an ongoing basis contribute to diabetes,
Mm,
heart disease, obesity, all sorts of physical issues. So we're seeing that body, mind, spirit approach. And then I'm not being present because with my spirit, with my essence, because I'm moving into the future to be anxious about something that generally is not a threat to me,
yeah.
right? So,
Yes.
for example, many people will say, well, I'm anxious about work. Well, what are you anxious about? Oh,
Mm,
I don't really know. I just don't think I'm going to be good enough. Well, instead of putting that energy into worrying about not being good enough, put that energy into doing your best in the present moment. Or somebody might say, I'm worried about finances. I don't know if I can pay my bills.
mm,
Well, okay, that's a very it's an important thing to be concerned with. But worry doesn't serve you.
mm,
Anxiety doesn't serve you. If
mm.
you don't think that you're able to pay your bills, instead of worry, which is non productive, anxiety, which is non productive, sit
Yes.
down, look at your bills, figure them out, see where
Mm,
you can rein it in, see maybe
mm,
you're so tight you can't rein it in anywhere else.
mm,
Work on a payment plan,
mm,
see if there's a way to get, some sort of loan or whatever it is. But you see how then you use your energy in a way that does help you
mm. Yes.
instead of just wasting it on worry.
Mm,
And worry, I believe, is, and this isn't my idea, I can't remember where I heard it, but it really rang true to me, that worry is a form of prayer.
mm,
And I never thought about it that way. But since I heard that, which was years ago, I realized when people don't understand that, I'll say, well, if I tell you, Toby, I'm going to worry about you. When we get off this podcast, I'm going to be worrying about you.
Oh,
Or if I say, Toby, when I get off this podcast, I'm going to be sending you blessings
that's better.
and prayers
Yeah.
and lots of healing light. Which would
Mm.
you prefer?
I love the healing lights and the prayers.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, of course, because then I'm sending you, and when I'm working, I always, here's one of them. I
Mm,
always have a candle, right?
mm,
And
mm,
this one's not burning right now, but it's generally burning.
mm.
And to remind me to always be sending whoever I'm working with or will be working with or have been working with healing energy and love and light. Much better than sending worry out into the universe. Doesn't do anything.
Yes, yes. So how do you send this energy out? Like you just send words of prayer in your mind for them or to them or wishing them good. How do you do that?
Yes. I usually, it's funny, I even do it during sessions, right? I'll
Yeah.
feel myself, my eyes will just close for a minute, and then I'll
Mm,
just be saying, may you be healed. May you have strength. May you have resilience in your life.
mm,
Something like that. And one of my favorite ancient blessings is this one. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you
amen.
be safe from inner and outer danger. May you be well in body, mind, and spirit. May you be truly happy and free.
Amen.
Amen. And that is an ancient, ancient blessing of loving kindness. It is
Mm,
one of my, go-tos. And when we offer that energy to ourselves and to others, it really centers us. Because
yeah.
even if I worry about you, I'm draining myself.
Yes.
Right. I'm worrying. What am I worrying for? Right.
Yeah.
If I just turn that and take a mindset of, I'm going to send you loving kindness,
Mm,
even if, get this, even if it's somebody who's harmed you.
mm,
And that can be a hard shift. I've been in that place where somebody has harmed me and you want to forgive,
mm.
right? And
Yes.
it's like, oh, right? You just can't quite get there. And then when you shift it to, I'm going to offer you loving kindness and healing,
Mm,
it's a win win
true.
because I don't have resentment or lack of forgiveness stuck in me.
Mm,
And if that other person even gets a droplet of what I'm sending,
mm.
they'll be a better person and they won't go and hurt other people.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. But it's quite challenging, right? It's quite challenging when you are hot or when you've been, I don't know, insulted by someone to send light and blessings to the person. But it takes a level of growth, personal growth, I guess, to do that.
Yes, it does, Toby. And as I remind people, we are all works in progress. We all have good days. We all have not so good days. And it's why I love yoga, right? It
Mm,
is not a perfect, it is a practice. We practice yoga. We
mm,
practice. And and as much as we try to do better every day and evolve and be kinder and more loving, there are times that we have little stumbles.
mm,
And so it's just learn from the stumble, whatever caused it, and move forward the next day, just a slightly better version of yourself.
mm,
And I think this takes me to, a really important piece. So many people are raised in environments where you're taught that a mistake is bad,
mm,
that you're taught that you are bad if you make a mistake.
mm.
I really shift this. That's very fear based, right?
Yeah.
I'm very growth based. So
Mm,
when I make a mistake,
mm,
and this is how I try and work with other people, look at the mistake,
mm,
find the lesson.
mm,
If you've hurt someone in the process, say, I'm very sorry. It's funny. I'll give an example. This morning, I said something to my husband, and I'm not a believer in sarcasm, right? I don't think it's a healthy dynamic. And
mm,
I very much try and steer away from it. And
mm.
I said something, and he says, Honey, that felt sarcastic. And I thought, wow. And my first response was, No, honey, that wasn't response. No, that wasn't sarcastic because I'm not a generally at all sarcastic person.
Mm,
And then I paused for a minute and I thought, I can actually see how he would see it that way.
mm,
I was being playful and curious in my head, but I could see how it came out that way. So I said, honey, I'm so sorry.
mm,
I can see how that struck you as being sarcastic, and I see that sarcastic edge to it, and I apologize. This
mm.
is where I was coming from, but I can see that I engaged in a way that I don't like you to engage with me, so I apologize. And then we move forward.
Yes,
And
yes.
when we do that, when we
Mm,
pause
mm,
to look at how did what I say or do affect another person, we're
mm,
flexing the muscle of empathy.
mm.
And then when we take a healing action to apologize and really mean it,
Yes.
and many people will apologize and go, oh, yeah, sorry, your feelings are hurt, right? And that doesn't feel good, really. But if
Mm,
we can actually step into the other person's shoes,
mm.
we are growing ourselves. And we're
Yes.
also growing with the other person
Mm.
because then we're creating a bond of self responsibility and trust. And we're
Yes.
holding ourselves accountable for being kind people.
Mm,
And someone I love very dearly gave me a little, I'm looking at it, it's a Dalai Lama piece, and it says, My religion is very simple. My
mm.
religion is kindness.
Oh,
And I think if we strive to always come from a place of kindness
mm,
as much as possible, we will be imperfect. We'll have our days where we're a little crotchety or irritable, but if we always try to come back
mm.
to kindness, we can generally do it quite okay.
That's very true. That's very true. I really like the fact that you made the example of you and your husband from what happened today. And I would love to talk about your upcoming book, Date Smart, where you talk about relationships in general, like, how to transform your relationship and love fearlessly. And so my first question actually will be, from your expertise, how can we, build up mindful communication skills with people we're in relationship with our friends, with our husbands, with our, with loved ones around us. How do we do that? How can we have these mindful and, mindful skills or mindful communication skills with people?
Oh, Toby, such a great question. One thing is
Yes.
to don't watch so much TV.
Mm,
Don't watch so many movies unless you're really engaging about the content afterward. Play more. Play more with your partner. Interact more. Give more eye contact. Be present. Do not multitask. During conversations, do not multitask. The myth of multitasking, it is a myth. There's lots of research that shows it hampers all of our tasks because we cannot be fully present. It's an
mm,
oxymoron for me to think I can be talking to you
mm,
and, texting at the
mm,
same time. I'm
yeah,
not going to be present for either,
mhm.
right?
True.
It's the same with communication. If we show up as I'm doing today and you're doing for me,
Yeah.
saying, I'm here, I'm all in, let's go. No
Mm,
agenda, let's go.
mm,
Let me hear what you have to say. Let me respond to it.
mm,
Let me be present. And if I get something wrong or get off course or confuse you, bring me back, right?
mm.
And
Yes.
if we enter a conversation like that, enter a relationship like that, of course, there will be relationships that are more superficial where somebody's meeting just to have, a drink or, just want to talk about dress colors or hair color or whatever it is, and that's
Yes.
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But we can even be present for that. We
Mm,
can even be present to hear somebody as they're talking about mountain bikes or their yoga class or whatever it is.
mm,
And so, what I really say is show up, Really just show up to be present. Whatever is out in the outer world, it's much like being with a child, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we show up for a child and just sit with them and play with them,
Mm,
they feel loved. We feel loved. We feel connected. We lose that often
mm,
as we age. Here's another piece. So I think that and this is one of the more important pieces. So many times people as they grow become wounded.
mm,
And as we have wounds in life, we let me get back for a minute. I believe that joy, you'll see where this is going.
mm,
Joy is one of our five emotions. And joy, I believe, also is always within us. That's why my first book was Joy from Fear.
mm,
Joy is always there. It's much like a little candle that's always burning. We're born with it. And as we move through life, it's in a little glass container. And sometimes so much soot builds on the container. So much soot, and we don't know how to wipe it off. We're not even taught how to wipe it off. We don't even
mm,
think of wiping it off. And it builds up. And then we don't see our light anymore.
mm,
And we want it always to be burning. So we're looking for happiness. We're looking for this pleasure, that pleasure. But what we need to do is turn inside and wipe that soot off.
mm,
Wipe the soot. And that's the self growth, that's the self work. So, in relationship, if I've let my candle build up a lot of soot and you've let your candle build up a lot of soot, and we
mm,
don't pay attention to where the soot came from, maybe people were cruel to me in relationships. Maybe you grew up in a family that was just perfect, right? And
mm,
you're coming from a place of goodness and trust, and I'm coming from a place of fear. And I'll let you get just so close to me, and then I'll
mm.
push you away. Happens a lot in relationships,
Mm,
not
mm,
consciously, and it's really where a lot of domestic violence and abuse comes from.
mm,
Not because people necessarily, although there are people who do this, but not that people necessarily want to hurt other people. They've just learned their joy, their life, their light is so covered with soot, so much pain, that they see other people as being pain causers.
mm.
And it's so sad. It's heartbreaking because I've worked with partners where this is happening, and it's sad no matter what's happening, but sometimes it's tragic when you're watching two people and they both want to be loved, but they can't get there. There's just so much hate, so much, and it's just awful. And then it's also awful when you see one person who's deeply hurting and a partner who's healthy who's coming and saying, "Let me love you.
Mm.
Let me love you." And the other person's going, "Okay," right? Okay,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so that's where self growth comes in.
Mm,
If we learn how to dutifully wipe that candle, the soot off, right? Wipe the
yes.
soot off. That's the self work. Sometimes we need the support of a professional to do that.
Mm,
Sometimes we do.
mm,
I certainly, one of the things I love about my master's program and my doctoral program, they require you to go through a lot of personal therapy, a lot. And my
wow.
doctoral program required a lot.
Mm,
Absolutely, they should.
mm.
Why? Because when I'm working with a client, I don't want my unhealed wounds, right, coming in and affecting the client.
Of course, of course.
No. And even with all the work I've done, if something comes up for me, I've become so good that I go, that's here. That's right. My piece is here. Let's put it over there.
Mm,
And then, later on, maybe go for a walk, understand why that came up, work on it, resolve it, consult if you need to consult.
yeah.
But you learn to do that. You learn to take that and pluck it and put it over here.
Mm,
And so we can also do that. You don't need to be a clinical psychologist to learn that quality.
mm,
That's the piece where being in somebody else's shoes, taking our issue and going, oh, this is happening for me. I'm feeling like my example with my husband this morning.
yes.
Oh, I can take myself out of this, observe myself, see that that could have been taken as sarcasm. Absolutely.
Mm,
It wasn't meant that way,
mm,
but I could absolutely see it from his perspective. If I step out of myself, I
yes.
could see me saying, I forget what it was about. It was something about something from childhood. I was like, oh, I didn't have that experience as a child. I wasn't in that realm.
Yeah.
And I could see how he took that, felt sarcastic. And
Mm.
I've worked with him very hard on learning how his sarcasm affects me, right? And so
Yes.
for him to point that out made me
Mm.
go, wow, what
Mm.
a gift that he's become so good at avoiding sarcasm that I think that's probably the second time in our entire relationship he's called me on something like that, right?
Mm. Mm.
Because I try and stay aware. But if I slip up, I really try to go, oh, there it is. Is that helpful? That it's
Yes.
just such a process that we have to, if we're in relationship, so many people don't want to say, I'm sorry. So
Uh,
many people don't want to say, oh, my mistake. What's the problem? To
mm.
me, if I make an error, it's a growth opportunity.
Mm.
If I just say, now, not sorry for the sake of sorry, but because an empty apology is often worse than no apology at all.
Yes.
But if I pause to say, Toby, I apologize for hurting your feelings. Please tell me more about what I did. You may say, well, you called me goofy,
Mm.
and goofy is a charged word for me. It
Mm.
doesn't feel good. I connect it with XYZ.
Mm.
Then I'll go, oh. And that's actually an experience that taught me. I called someone goofy, and to me, goofy is like goofy. And this
Mm.
person did not like it and
Mm.
said, don't call me goofy. And I said, I'm so sorry. Tell me more. I
Mm.
think of Goofy as like a Disney, Goofy the dog in Disney, Goofy.
Yeah.
And he said, no, my dad would call me Goofy and be really mean to me about it. I said,
Mm.
oh, I am so sorry.
Mm.
So then I knew in the future to, especially with that individual, be very careful with words that may not be charged for me. And we are all have words that are charged for us
True.
that may not be charged for someone else because of our childhood experiences.
Yes.
Because each one of us has walked through life such a different path. And that's why if we show up for our friends and really listen,
Mm.
we can learn so much about that other person's world.
Mm.
We have, it's just extraordinary to me that if we really tune into someone, you and I were chatting a little bit before the podcast, and I could have gone on with you for hours
Mm.
because you live in a different world than I do.
Yeah.
And if I dive into that space, I learn about Toby. How amazing to me that people let us into that world. And so I think if we approach communication from that vantage point, that it's a privilege. If somebody wants to talk with us, what a privilege.
If you love this first part of the conversation and would love to learn more about relationships, dating smart, and aging joyfully, kindly listen to part 2. Thank you.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye.